Egypt and Ethiopia have been trying to strike a deal on the terms of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, but new realities on the ground have repeatedly capsized diplomatic endeavors. Now, Egypt is taking things a step further. President El-Sisi says that the military option is on.
No one talks about it. It's not in the media. They built a dam where Ethiopia now controls the water of the Nile. And Egypt knows that in the future there will be droughts and water is gone. And they don't have access to the water anymore because Ethiopia took it with the dam. And now they're really like, whoa, man, you want to fucking die?
And
this
that
could
there
be the
would
first
be
real water war, man.
inconceivable instability in the region if Egypt's water supply was affected. Though the Egyptian leadership has always flexed its military muscle, the threat is now more tangible than before thanks to a new collection of sophisticated weaponry. Since early 2021, Egypt has procured powerful missiles, warplanes, and delivery systems that match its political rhetoric. The circumstances have escalated to the point where a military conflict can no longer be dismissed.
What weapon are they running? That's an M16, man, from Vietnam, isn't it?
Appears on the map is only a tiny part of what really is. In Egypt, less than 3% of the land is habitable. The desert covers much of the country, and nearly the entirety of the population resides along the banks of the Nile River. Although the Nile is not commercially navigable, it forms the heart and soul of Egypt. Its splendid history, culture, and art all stem from the Nile.
That shit is so old.
Ethiopia has an equally remarkable history, but a very different geography. Its territory is a whole lot more fertile.
I heard the story, right? This actually happens. All these countries you see here, they're currently building a wall of trees because the Sahara is moving in. The Sahara is growing and growing because of global warming, and the sand is going down and killing everything. So these nations they are now building a massive wall of trees so the Sahara can't come in anymore.
And
is
mountains,
that crazy,
giving way to a dozen major rivers.
Isn't that fucking insane?
At least 3 watershed systems originate from the Ethiopian highlands, and much of the periphery relies on the country as a source of fresh water, earning it the nickname the Water Tower of Africa. Both Egypt and Ethiopia are demographic juggernauts. Each has a population exceeding 100 million, and each is growing at...
Wait, they have already 100 million. Wait, what? How big is Ethiopia, bro? Wait, what? Dude, we Western arrogant white fucks, we just don't know anything about Africa. Holy crap, that's amazing. Nigeria is also massive, right? Damn, they're massive, dude. Wow,
to ordinary levels. Ethiopia will eclipse the 200 million benchmark by 2050, while Egypt will reach that level by 2075. Clearly, both nations need to plan ahead and secure the necessary resources to sustain such high levels of populations. In Ethiopia, however, there are additional complications. Its population is ethnically diverse, and only about 45% of the public has access to electricity. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, sitting northeast of Ethiopia, is expected to provide around 6,500 megawatts of hydropower. That is not going to be enough to fix all of Ethiopia's shortcomings, but it would quadruple the amount of electricity generated in the country. Millions of citizens would be uplifted from poverty, and the government would be able to provide essential services to its remote regions. In a place as remote...
I sometimes imagine, I dream that one day you and me will be old. We'll be old men, like 85 years old. And the world will be like in Interstellar. You can't breathe anymore, too many people, everything is dusty. There's no fresh air anymore. I dream that sometimes, man, and it's fucking scary, man. It scares me.
And ethnically diverse as Ethiopia, infrastructure can be a valuable conduit for unity. But
like,
there's a catch. The flow of the Nile, including the Blue Nile, is remarkably slow. By comparison, the Amazon River flows at a rate of 65 times greater than the Nile, and the Mississippi flows 6 times greater. The gentle water flow is a characteristic of the Nile, but that trait also makes hydropower projects somewhat unpredictable. A rapid filling of the Ethiopian dam's reservoir would likely further reduce the river's flow, which would then affect agricultural and industrial standings in the downstream nations. It is this anxiety that makes the Ethiopian project such a controversy. Now, going by international law, Ethiopia is technically within its rights to develop and employ its
Steigenberg. Why is everything German in Egypt? That's a German
hydropower potential.
Everything's fucking
There
German.
exists no treaty between Ethiopia and Egypt on the share of water resources.
Holy shit, careful.
That said, sometimes international law fails to take context into account, and Cairo is having none of it. A dam along the Blue Nile would jeopardize Egypt's freshwater supply.
I mean, what is Egypt going to do? You obviously have to be mad about that.
Takes second place. Thus, to stop the project, Cairo has been negotiating the terms and conditions of the dam. It has been a painstakingly long negotiation process that has lasted over a decade.
When I was in Egypt.
Initially, the talks were about stopping the construction of the dam, then it was about reducing its size, but after both discussions failed, the talks shifted to the rate at which the reservoir is being filled. The trouble has always been that Egypt lacks leverage on Ethiopia, and the Ethiopians have exploited that fact by negotiating in bad faith. More specifically, Addis Ababa has been using the negotiations to buy time and impose new realities on the ground rather than reach an agreement. Now the negotiations are not so much about the existence or size of the Ethiopian dam, but its technical aspects. More specifically, the talks focus on the duration of the filling procedure. Egypt wants to extend the process as much as possible, preferably by 20 years. This would set a legal precedent for future dam negotiations, while also giving the Egyptians time to prepare their infrastructure and industries for the water shortcomings. About 99% of Egypt's population lives along the banks of the Nile River, so it's imperative to plan ahead and get things right. Ethiopia, however, wants to avoid setting a legal precedent. It doesn't want to commit itself to mandatory talks in the future, so it wants a deal that is non-binding, something that doesn't require it to give guarantees. Plus, Ethiopia wants to get things rolling as soon as possible, and the state is eyeing somewhere between 2023 and 2030. The gap between Ethiopian and Egyptian lawmakers...
There was a guy in chat who said it's just 10 kilometers from the border, so Egypt could take it easily. Isn't there countries in between here, you muppet? I don't think they border each other, man.
...has become incompatible. Each side is stuck in its own discourse, and neither can afford to step back and let the other dictate terms. It has become a zero-sum game. With that in mind, in July 2020, Ethiopia completed the first filling phase, loading 4.9 billion cubic meters of water into the dam's reservoir. A year later, the second filling phase was completed with a load of 13.5 billion cubic meters of water. There is now enough water stored to begin producing hydropower. And if things keep going at this pace, the Ethiopian dam will reach full power generating capacity in just 2 years. Egypt has to find ways to delay the filling before it's too late. It has tried all sorts of tactics, but Egypt is working against the clock. Foreign actors have no appetite for a new battle space for power and influence. Plenty of powerhouses are interested in Egypt and its surroundings, but each has more pressing priorities. Russia and the United States would rather avoid a new front in their global competition.
The third filling was just recently finished with 22 billion cubic meters, and in the end it should hold about 77 billion. That's 77 billion cubic meters of fresh water, man. Dude, that's going to be very
Chinese companies are working on the Ethiopian project, which further complicates the calculus. Regional powers such as Saudi Arabia, Sudan, and the United Arab Emirates are preoccupied with reconciling relations with Israel. The last thing they want is more controversy. Meanwhile, European powers such as France and Italy are playing both sides. France, for instance, is supplying hydroelectric equipment to Ethiopia while also selling war.
I've been driving my car for 12 years. The worst thing ever was this roundabout. I was in this roundabout once. Maybe some people in chat have been there. The worst thing you will ever do in your life in a car is the roundabout around the Arc de Triomphe. It's the worst thing ever. But you should do it. If you ever drive into Paris, just do it for the experience, man. You're gonna be horrified, man. You will just...
Planes to Egypt. So
it's
French
insane.
planes could end up bombing French equipment.
It's literally Mario Kart, yeah.
Exactly like that. The only country Egypt can rely on is itself. Taking that to heart, Egypt has gone on a shopping spree. It has come in possession of powerful Scalp EG cruise missiles. These are missiles designed to strike targets of high value located deep in enemy territory, such as airports, command and control centers, early warning systems, and, of course, hydropower dams. The missiles would be delivered by Rafale fighter jets and escorted by Su-35s, which were also recently
That's the one we just built in Dawn, the Su-35.
Procured this year, in fact. Also, this year, Egypt signed military collaboration agreements with 3 Nile River riparian states, Sudan, Uganda, and Burundi. While in the previous year, the Egyptian Air Force demonstrated aerial refueling capabilities for combat.
Apparently, if you refuel a jet in air, that's like a big thing, man. That's like, look at me, man, I refueled my airplane, bitch.
Yes, like Egypt has worked tirelessly to beef up its military capacity. The type of aircraft, missiles, and assets give teeth to Egypt's rhetoric. Though there are still questions on the range, firepower, skill, and integration of systems, the Egyptian Air Force is inching closer to being capable of destroying the Ethiopian dam. However, the filling process is now at such a stage that it may already be too late for Egypt to fully destroy the dam. Having filled up with at least 18 billion cubic meters of water, downstream Egypt and Sudan would be the first to suffer the consequences of flooding. So, any attack on the dam would have to be surgical, targeting specific systems or facilities within the site, but not the actual dam itself. The goal would be to hurt its operational state without destroying it. Beyond a direct military strike, there may be an alternative way of forcing Ethiopia to compromise. In November 2020, Ethiopia mobilized its military into the Tigray region to suppress a secessionist movement and restore government control. The hostilities are still going strong, but in the months since, tens of thousands of refugees have crossed the border into Sudan. While previously the Sudanese government had come to an understanding with Ethiopia's hydropower project, the influx of refugees has reignited tensions between the two. There have already been multiple low-level skirmishes between Sudanese troops and Ethiopian militias.
Oh shit!
At the same time, unrest is brewing in Ethiopia's Benishangul-Gumuz region.
It seems like
this is noteworthy because the region borders Sudan and has the Blue Nile flowing through it. Slightly to the south, in the West Welaga zone of the Oromia region, the Ethiopian government has been cracking down on local militias. This is big because if the Oromos start feeling sidelined, it could spell disaster for Ethiopia at large. The Oromos account for about a third of Ethiopia's population, and they were the source of the 2018 unrest that unseated the previous administration. President Abiy has not lost control over these ethnic regions, but he needs to walk a tightrope between pacifying separatist sentiment while not provoking an ethnic backlash. This delicate dance provides El-Sisi with an opportunity to monitor and, wherever possible, exploit Ethiopia's internal vulnerabilities to extract concessions in the negotiations over the dam. It's the same policy that his predecessors tried, a failed policy that is, but Egypt may have no other choice. When diplomacy fails, armed conflict can no longer be dismissed. Egypt needs leverage, something to bargain with. If it cannot achieve its goals through diplomatic channels, it may well resort to brute force. That shouldn't come as a surprise. Egyptian President Anwar Sadat once stated that water was the only matter
you guys always say I talk shit about the water stuff. The only matter that could take Egypt to war is water.
take Egypt to
you,
war.
water is everything in the
Today,
future, man.
Egypt faces its most
just if you have time tonight, Google Bill Gates waterman.
pernicious water crisis
Bill
in
Gates
history.
is buying water
The government may
in
yet try
US,
some
man.
aggressive negotiating.
It
can do so by either winning Sudan's favor and jointly launching a preemptive surgical strike, or by persuading the Tigray and Oromo to switch allegiances in hope of destabilizing Ethiopia.